Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund has called the current pandemic-induced recession as Mom Cession. The IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva, made the remarks in a conversation with the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, at the first Vietnam Economic Forum. According to her, the pandemic hits the low-skilled mothers of young children the hardest. Dao tells us more.
Women are much likely to take time off to care for children and relatives, and during lockdowns, often have to combine teleworking and childcare. In a recent conversation with the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, said the COVID-19 pandemic has affected women more than men. She described the pandemic-induced recession as Mom Cession, saying it hit the low-skilled mothers of young children the hardest.
In both developed and developing countries, this recession is a mom session. We call it she session, but the accurate term is mom session because it is mothers of young children that have hardest time to return to work. And when they are low skilled, the hit on them is very severe. Across countries, we see advanced economies pulling out. They have more fiscal space to act, more monetary policy space. They also have much better access to vaccinations, whereas developing countries, for these two reasons, being constrained, are falling further behind. And again, we have to think of how we can overcome this scarring by bringing more the care and empathy of women.
Georgieva said she is shocked by how the pandemic excessively affects women in the early months.
What shocked me the most was how easy it is to go back. How the pandemic, especially in the early months, disproportionately affected women. They are in the healthcare sector in much bigger numbers, 70–80%. They are in contact-dependent industries like hospitality, tourism, and they really got the hit very hard. And then on top of it, violence against women. I have, before the pandemic.
However, the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, pointed out that in Europe, women are underrepresented in most economic sectors, including decision-making and policy circles.
In Europe, European Parliament include about 1/3 of women representatives. If we look at most of the board of publicly quoted company, again, a little less than 1/3 of board members are women. And if you look at chairmen and CEOs, it's hardly 20% that are, actually not 20%, 8% CEOs and chairmen are women in publicly quoted companies. So not great. Clear underrepresentation.
As the IMF believes that the COVID-19 pandemic has affected women more than men, it is therefore urging policymakers to consider this crisis as an opportunity to deal with the gender inequalities that already existed before the pandemic and work on closing the gap. About 84% of the working women aged 15 to 64 are employed in services, including in the main COVID-hit sectors that are facing job losses.